Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. We are here live this morning. If you're watching at 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 Eastern Time, our phone lines are open. If you've got a question, get your call queued up. The number is 610-363-1110. What might you call in and ask? Well, you have questions about stewardship. If you have questions about how you can honor God in the way that you invest, we call that biblically responsible investing, or defunding darkness, as you screen out companies that are using shareholder dollars to fund a dark agenda like abortion, pornography, the LGBTQ agenda, things that don't line up with Christian values. You can screen that stuff right out of your portfolio, and we can help you do it. We also encourage you to fund the light, to be a joyful and generous giver in the kingdom. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show, but there's some headline that I wanted to talk about in regard to something that happened at the DNC, and we'll get to that later in the show and tell you how you can push back against that darkness and actually fund the light. Our stewardship verse today comes from Proverbs 28:26. Whoever trusts in his own mind is a fool, but he who walks in wisdom will be delivered. Well, you often hear us say that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It is pure foolishness to think that we can be wise in our own eyes apart from knowing God. But that's what we begin to think as we come of age, as we begin to acquire some knowledge and think that we know better than everybody else. Well, there are two opposing viewpoints in this world. Number one, and the correct one, God is the creator, we are the creation. God owns it all, and he knows how it all works. He is good, he loves us, he will bless us with things and tell us best how to use those things. Or the opposing viewpoint that it doesn't really matter how we got here, but we can become enlightened, we can figure everything out on our own, and we can be the Lord over our own life, and so can everyone else be the Lord over their own lives. Well, one works, the other has disastrous consequences. Christianity takes the first position and believes that we are born sinners, wicked, and foolish, and that we need a Savior to reconcile us to a righteous God. We need a godly counselor to lead us in the ways of righteousness and cause us to reject our own foolish ways. Christianity believes that life is sacred and precious, and we are born unrighteous, and we only get worse when left to our own faculties and devices. Progressivism, on the other hand, believes that we are born good and righteous, and we will only get better as a result of following our own hearts and trusting in our own devices and our own wisdom. Well, let me clear some things up. From my own experience, the first scenario is true. We are born sinful, unrighteous, and in need of a Savior, but we are so precious to the Lord that he sent us that Savior. So let's accept that gift, walk in wisdom, and receive deliverance today. Seth, what'd you think?
Well said, Shana. Yep, it's a good reminder for us. It's sobering when we think that our own minds are not bent towards wisdom. When none of us is born wise, we're born foolish, and we are bent towards foolishness. And so that's why we need to trust the wisdom that comes from somewhere else, and specifically that wisdom comes from God. So I agree with you that we must walk in wisdom and find that true deliverance that God brings today. Ultimately, that deliverance comes in Christ. So it's good stuff, Shana. You know, speaking of wisdom, this week we'll be looking for some more wisdom as we're trying to be good, godly investors. And so I thought it would be a good idea for us to maybe piece out this week different life stages and kind of hearing from your wisdom about what people in these different life stages should be doing. So today is in my 20s and 40s, so kind of younger folks, 20s, 30s, and 40s. What should I be doing to be a wise investor and build long-term wealth and grow my funds for retirement? So Shana, just to kind of start off here, what are some of the best things that young folks can do to be wise with their money?
Well, if you're just starting out, avoid as much debt as you can, especially student debt and even more so credit card debt. If you found yourself with those kinds of debts, you need to be very aggressive at eliminating those debts. There's all kind of online calculators that you can use to help put a repayment plan together with a target date to be free of your student loan and credit card debt. This has become the number 2 cause of people having financial troubles or challenges. Number 1, number 2, student debt. Number 1 is credit card debt, which has surpassed just recently this year $1 trillion for U.S. consumers. Second, covering your debt if you have it and protecting your income if you don't, because this is the stage that you'll likely be starting a family. So this means life insurance. Term insurance will be the most practical for young people. However, if you can afford to properly fund some permanent life insurance while you're young and healthy, you should consider it. There's a lot packed into that statement, though. If your family never needs that permanent protection, meaning you don't die early, it can become a great asset passage tool for the next generation. Term insurance, though, will likely be the most affordable for the long run at a young age. And all kinds of insurance is cheaper the younger that you are and the healthier that you are. The amount of permanent coverage that you can afford will not likely be enough as you take on a spouse and welcome children into your family. So you should be able to layer term coverage and possibly coverage from an employer on top of that. You also need to get a plan for health care. A major health care need at a young age could put a really big dent in a good long-term plan. If you have coverage offered through work, that's one way of getting it, especially if they pay for all of it or a good part of it. If not, consider a health sharing alternative like Samaritan's Ministries. That's the one that we use here at this ministry, and you can find information about them at our website, financialissues.org. You should also develop a savings and investment discipline. So even if you don't have a lot of money to put back towards it, developing that discipline of putting some money back every single month is a very good habit to get into. So make sure that you're living below your means in order to be able to do this. Number 1, pay your tithe. Give back. Everything belongs to God, all of our income. He even gives us the ability to create income and to generate income. So we should honor God. Our proper response should be to give back to God the 10th that He asked for us. Pay your taxes, pay Caesar what is Caesar's, because if you don't, you'll end up having in some really big financial problems. And save 10 to 20% before spending on your needs and wants. So assuming that you give 10%, pay tax of 15 to 20%, and save 10 to 15%, you now have 55 to 65% of your gross pay or your top line pay to quote unquote live on. So if you have debt to pay down, plan to live on only 45 to 55% of that top line pay, as you really need to eliminate that debt. You need to establish an emergency savings first as you start to put back that money every month. That should be somewhere between 3 to 6 months of your living expenses, and then begin a retirement account. Start that discipline. Sign up for an employer account plan if you're offered one, like a 401k or TSP plan, just enough to get the match, and consider the Roth option if it's offered to you. If not, get the match in your pre-tax employer plan and start the Roth on your own, because it's very likely you'll be in one of the lowest tax brackets ever in your life, and it's better to pay the taxes now if you're in a low tax bracket than at some point in the future, because I think they're going to be much higher.
Yeah, that's great, Shana. And quickly here, what about pitfalls that young folks need to keep an eye on? Maybe some that the older generations didn't need to worry about. Example, Social Security running out, proclivity to get rich. How could you speak to that?
Yeah. Well, keeping up with the Joneses, now that's not a new temptation at all, but it's one that snares many in every generation. It'll be a challenge to save, especially with higher taxes that I believe are coming in the future. But don't believe the lie that we can trust the government to redistribute the wealth fairly, or that they will take care of us from cradle to grave. That's very, very important, not only in the way that you live and save, but in the way that you vote. If we ever get the opportunity to opt out of Social Security in the younger generation, we should certainly consider it, as long as we have established that discipline to actually save and invest. Got a little bit more to say about that. Maybe we'll catch it on the flip side of this break. Well, folks, that was a lot packed in there. If you need to re-listen, get our phone app, and you're able to go back and listen to not only that, but all parts of the show. We're going to take a break, but we're going to come back with more financial issues right after this.
I actually called the clinic thinking that it was an abortion clinic. I knew that at the time my partner wasn't going to be involved. I did want SUSAT, but I was having financial problems. And I was like, I don't need an appointment. They're like, just come in and we'll help you. And so I went in, and that practically changed my life. I had not been sleeping in. I remember being able to sleep that night because I knew that something was going to happen. I was able to carry Suzette full term and have her. I'm extremely happy that I did not get an abortion. I don't think I would be here today, or my daughter. I don't think I would ever sacrifice as much as I did, because I feel that I did it for her. And if it wasn't that people that supported me, I don't think I would have ever been here.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Great to be here with you. Shana, I'm enjoying this conversation because it really applies to me, and I know it does to our younger listeners out there as well. Of course, if you're an older listener, I hope you're listening to this also, because you may have children or grandchildren who might need to hear some of this wisdom. So, Shana, you speak a lot about younger investors needing to focus on different things than older investors do, and that thing is specifically growth. Young investors are able to be a little bit more aggressive than the older ones are. Could you speak to why that is?
Yeah. Seth, I'm really glad that you said that about, the older generation, because, we're really charged with sitting down and telling our kids, passing along the wisdom that we've gleaned in this lifetime. So, the most important thing that you can pass on is your faith, obviously, and your reason for hope in Jesus Christ. Yeah. But, teaching that next generation these solid principles are going to be key, because they're not going to learn it in school. Absolutely. They're not going to learn it from mainstream media. They're going to get true wisdom from, someone who's experienced it. And, if you're in an older generation right now, you've not only experienced the inflation that's happened recently, but you probably lived through some of the inflation and some of the things that happened in the 70s and 80s. And, I think that this is going to be probably one of the biggest challenges for young people. The top two things that I think are going to be challenges for young people is going to be inflation, because although it's moderated, if you listen to the government numbers and the the government generated numbers and all of that, then that paint this really soft landing kind of picture and Goldilocks kind of scenario. If you're living in the real world, that inflation is real. It may have slowed down, but it hasn't gone away, and it's a real problem. And it's going to be a problem as long as the government, not only our government, but world governments, continue to spend money the way that they have spent it. Money that they don't have, by the way. So inflation is going to be a real challenge for young people. Equity investing has always been the antidote to inflation because companies will exist to make a profit, and they will continue to make a profit, which means that, their prices will go up as inflation increases. So the way to get ahead of the antidote to inflation is equity investing. The second thing is going to be taxes. Taxes are going to be a real challenge to young folks. So it's a good idea to learn to live well below your means right now, because inflation, sorry about this, all this bad news today, but inflation and taxes are probably going to be eat into your discretionary income for some time to come, unless we really get a hold of the things, if we really get a revelation of what's happening in our country, that we repent, and that we elect leaders who will cause our country to repent and turn from its ways as well. Not only its fiscal ways, but the moral ways that have become so prevalent in this country. Yeah. I won't go down that soapbox, but taxes are going to be a real challenge, because we've allowed the government to run up massive debt. I'm not sure, I haven't looked in the last few weeks, but if we're not to 36 trillion yet, we're very, very close.
Almost there, Shana. Yeah.
Almost there. Yeah.
Almost there. We're up well into 35 trillion.
Yeah. And it's not going in the other direction. Yeah. We're still spending. I saw a statistic that the government has spent since the beginning of 2023 more money than it spent during COVID, and we were supposedly in a crisis at that time. So the antidote to higher taxes is to vote people in who will face head on the spending problems that we will have. Make no mistake about it, it will be very painful for us to get this under control. But if we don't, it's going to be even more painful down the road. Well, let's shift gears and look at the markets. Yesterday, the market started off this last week somewhat mixed. The Dow finished at a new record, while the tech sector pulled the S&P and the NASDAQ into the negative. By the closing bell yesterday, the Dow was up 0.16%. The S&P was down a third of a point, and the NASDAQ down 85 basis points. This morning, all three stock indices are looking to open slightly in negative territory. I think everyone's waited on bated breath to see what NVIDIA is going to post. I think that's going to be a big market mover this week. The 10-year Treasury closed at 3.82, and oil closed at 77.11. It is down a little bit, 76, but it breached $80 a barrel as some things are happening, if you haven't heard, in the Middle East with Israel and basically everyone that hates Israel. Israel took out, conducted airstrikes in southern Lebanon and took out thousands, I think 6,000 was the number that I heard, Hezbollah missiles, and not only the missiles, but the launchers. It's really hard to shoot the missiles if you have no launchers. That caused crude oil to go, Brent crude to go above $80 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate rose above 75. And then there's also a clash over the weekend in Libya against who's going to be in power in their central bank, that's causing them to shut down their oil production and cause oil prices to go up a little bit. We've got a caller in the queue, so let's get right to it. We've got Anna calling from California. Hi, Anna. You're live on Financial Issues.
Good morning, Shana.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. I want to just thank you for your help, for Dan's help. I've been a partner for 7 years now. And I'm just praying that I can say everything succinctly that I have called you before. I called about 3 months ago and asked about the fact that I have this self-directed brokerage account that was part of a 401 of my employer. I have been retired now for 4 years. And my husband has been disabled and retired for 20. So I'm the one who takes care of this, and it's a big job, but with FISM, Dan, and your help, I have done so good. But let me get to the things that I've written down, and I hope that I can say well. When I took your advice 3 months ago, I had to sell all the money that was in that self-directed brokerage account in order to access 100%, which they were only allowing me to access 50% at that time. So I had to sell it, which I did. And so I had to start all over building a portfolio. And I am now, right now, over 70% in cash from that sale. I have created in those months since then a CD ladder out of 30% of that cash. And I have been slowly building an investment portfolio from the buy list, which has been kind of meager lately, but I'm still slowly listening. I'm slowly doing that so that I can do it according to what your advice was 3 months ago. But now my question has to do with choosing stocks that are, labeled in blue, FISM, and choosing stocks which are labeled white. Should I choose stocks differently for the qualified funds that I have than the non-qualified funds? Because I have cash in both groups. I have cash in both groups, and then some of the qualified funds are Roth. So some of it is 401, and some are Roth 401, and some are just cash from a home I had sold. So my question is, should I sell? Should I have more blue-colored stock for the non-qualified funds and white-colored stocks for the qualified funds, or vice versa? Or does it even make a difference?
Well, that's a great question. I think it does, because I believe that taxes are going to be higher in the future than what they are today. That's the basic premise that I'm going off here, and trying to be very tax efficient. So, I propose what's called a tax located strategy, because, at the end of the day, it's not just about the return that you make inside your accounts. In some of those accounts, as you mentioned, you're going to have to pay taxes today. That's the non-qualified money. If you get dividends or you sell positions and you have capital gains, you could potentially have some capital gains taxes to pay there. In whatever year that you do it. And then in the pre-tax IRA from the 401k, you have an embedded tax liability. You've never paid taxes on any of the money going in. You got a tax break on that money as it went in, and then you have tax deferral until the time that you take it out. So you want to it's not just about the return that you can make inside your accounts. It's more about what you can keep. So you want to be tax efficient. So with the Roth account, because you have the best tax treatment there, as long as you meet those qualifying criteria, which are not hard to meet, as long as you've had it open for 5 years and you're 59 and a half, you probably meet those criteria already. But you're going to get tax-free growth there. So there, you're going to pick stocks that are marked for growth. So don't worry about having dividends there. I certainly wouldn't put your CDs there, because that's going to be, kind of the slowest growing piece of your portfolio. As long as long-term averages hold up. So you want to get the things that are marked for growth, things that don't pay dividends. The technology stocks that you're going to look at would be good there. There are some utility stocks that are considered growth. There are some energy stocks that are considered growth. Healthcare, especially biotechnology stocks, those are going to be considered high growth. So you're going to start with that. In your IRA, which is, I'm going to just go out on a limb and guess that that's probably where the bulk of the money is concentrated. You're going to get your income producing investments there. So your CD ladder, your fixed income things off the buy list are going to go there. And then your slower growing, that's where you're really going to concentrate those blue stocks, the ones that are that have the highest yielding dividends. And then in your non-qualified account, that's where you want to get your ETFs. So ETFs are more tax efficient than mutual funds and some stocks. So you're going to start there with your ETFs, and then fill in the blanks as needed. Well, I'm so glad that you called today, Anna. We'll hold you over if you have a follow-up question. But folks, if you have questions like Anna, give us a call, 610-363-1110. We'll continue with the long version of the show right after this break. Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
Every time I turn on the news, I get so frustrated. When I read a headline, it's obvious they're just trying to manipulate me for clicks and views. I just want to stay informed about what's going on without all the drama and opinions. I knew I needed to find an alternative, and thankfully I found FISM News. They keep the viewers up to date with all the latest news without the extra noise. Check them out by going to fismnews.tv. That's fismnews.tv.
As of this year, more than 1,000 school districts have adopted gender non-conforming policies that intentionally keep parents in the dark about their kids' gender identities. To make matters worse, the American Bible Society now reports Bible reading is at an all-time low. We can't hide from the issues facing our country anymore. The undeniable truth is we're in a culture war, and we must be engaged. For over the last 25 years, Financial Issues has stood as a leader of biblically responsible investing, encouraging the body of Christ to keep funds out of companies that dishonor God. We call that defunding the darkness. We're at the forefront of the fight, helping you not only with your finances, but advocating for truth and godly wisdom. Run the race with us as we press forward together. For more information, go to financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
Well, this property was actually purchased by my great-grandfather, and we were able to come back to the farm a few years back to keep the family farm, hopefully, in the family.
Working together is a lot of fun sometimes and can be very challenging.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
We want to try to provide the freshest possible and healthiest possible produce for our neighbors and our friends and the people that we are able to touch in their lives at the farmers markets. Samaritan Ministries is a perfect fit because we feel like we can actually partner with other Christians to help them provide for their medical needs.
We're Tony and Ginger Malik, and we are Grandma and Grandpa's farm in Sparland, Illinois, and we are Samaritan Ministry members.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. We were so glad to hear from Anna in that last segment. Anna's been a partner for a long time, and she is building her own portfolio, becoming her own portfolio manager, honoring God in the way that she invests. And we kept Anna on for a minute during the break there, and I got to talk to her. She did have a follow-up question. So I think to kind of speak to that and to some of the challenges that she's facing right now, so many times when we start working on the portfolio, some decisions are going to be made by default. And what I mean by that is you have, in Anna's case, she's got 3 different pots of money here. So you got a non-qualified piece. That was, she said, money from the sale of a house. So it's money that's already had taxes paid on it. And then the money that's invested there, when you earn dividends or interest or you sell things, you can have capital gains taxes applied to some of that. Then she's got a bucket, so to speak, of qualified money in the form of an IRA that's all pre-tax. That money has never had taxes paid on it, so it has an embedded tax bill or an embedded tax liability. And then she's got the Roth bucket, which will grow tax-free. She's already paid taxes on that portion of the money because it's in a Roth. That's going to grow, continue to grow tax-free as long as Congress never changes the laws about that. And so, in whatever situation you find yourself in, one of these buckets is going to be the biggest and one is going to be the smallest. So as I was talking to Anna, the smallest bucket that she had was the Roth. So I suggest to start there. With the Roth account, you're going to get as many of the aggressive stocks as you can. So, take a look at your asset allocation. If 5%, let's say, is dedicated to technology and 5% of your overall portfolio is your Roth, well, your Roth is probably going to have 100% technology stocks in it because you're looking at your portfolio. That's all your investable dollars in all 3 of the buckets as one portfolio. Then you want to move to the IRA account and you want to build all of your fixed income out in there. So that's going to be your CDs and the other things off of the fixed income list. And then you're going to want to look at the blue stocks. You can go ahead and start to position some of those there. And then in the non-qualified account, you're going to start with your ETFs. So ETFs have a little bit more preferential tax treatment than just individual stocks or mutual funds. So you're going to start there, and then the rest of the decisions will kind of be made by default depending on where there's the most cash. So I hope that helps Anna a little bit.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Shana. That was good.
Yep. If you've got a question, folks, the number is 610-363-1110, and you'll be the next caller in the queue. Let's shift gears a little bit to some economic news. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas released their General Business Activity Index for manufacturing in Texas just yesterday. The report said that the number rose to negative 9.7 in August of 2024 from negative 17.5. So the only way that you can rise when you have a negative number is to have a negative number smaller than the last month. So this is the, trying to paint this in the most positive light as possible, this is the lowest contraction level since January of 2023. So manufacturing has been in recession. It is still in recession, but this number for August was less bad than in July. So production grew from the previous month in this Texas. This is the Texas. We get manufacturing from all over the country. So isolated to Texas. Production grew in the previous month. New order index climbed. Shipments came in near zero, Wages continue to go up. That's inflationary. No change in employment levels from July. On the price front, raw material cost accelerated. Raw material cost accelerating, that is inflationary. More than just the numbers, here are some comments from those manufacturers who participated in that Texas survey. From the machinery manufacturing segment, quote, "The slowdown is settling in with business activity at a very low level. Things are just plain bad all over. There is no skilled labor available. Our business usually has seasonally decreased in the summer months, but the decrease this summer is more significant than usual. We are now not so sure about the future." From the furniture and related business segment, we are experiencing slower pay on accounts receivable. There's continued shortage of skilled carpenters and saw operators. Project size has increased from general contractors. Inexperienced architects and construction project managers cause significant construction timeline delays. From the computer and electronic segment, we are getting more resistance to higher prices from our customers. We are also seeing orders reduced or delayed from a few of the more price-sensitive ones. The biggest uncertainty is about the election. A lot of our customers are taking a wait-and-see approach. All small business owners that I talk to are very concerned about the high tax, anti-growth, and anti-small business policies that are certain to come from a Harris presidency. Food manufacturers say we are preparing for a recession. So the numbers that we see, the economic numbers that we see, are usually reported by government sources, and they are painting a vivid, soft landing picture with bold colors. But there is a real disconnect coming from real businesses and from Main Street. So we'll just kind of leave that right there. That's more of the same. Are we saying that there's going to be a recession? Not very loudly, but, I wouldn't be surprised. So, Seth, you heard about the satanic temple that was set up near the DNC to offer child sacrifice to the demon god?
I did hear about that, Shana. I thought that it was a Planned Parenthood clinic. Oh, wait a second. They're the same thing. Of course. It's ridiculous. It's really sad, Shana. Absolutely. Yeah, I did hear about that. It was terrible.
Planned Parenthood mobile unit performed 8 chemical abortions and some vasectomies, we heard too, all while the DNC was going on. So that's my rhetoric there, that it was a sacrifice to demon gods.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So what really happened? What's the news?
Yeah, so there was a pro-life pregnancy center actually around the same time that was vandalized in Chicago a week after the conclusion of the DNC there, Shana. So staff members of the pro-life nonprofit Aid to Women found the door cemented shut. Words "fake clinic," "dead babies are in Gaza." This pregnancy center was forced to cancel appointments with women seeking assistance. I don't know if we'll have time in this segment, Shana, but we have a picture of it we can show in the next segment there for sure. No arrests have been made, as we're seeing. So this is just really sad stuff here, Shana. Really sad.
It is really sad, and one of the things that we talk about here at the ministry is not only defunding darkness, but funding the light.
Yeah.
But hey, we've got to hear from Craig Haugaard with the Ag Report, but we're going to take a break after that, and then we're going to come back and we're going to tell you what you can do about all of this. Here comes Craig.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for August 27th. Well, after seeing Friday's Pro Farmer Tour results, I would have said that corn would be higher and beans would be lower to start the week, but corn was under pressure as farmer give-up selling continues to bring bushels to the marketplace. As a result, December corn was 4.5 cents lower yesterday at $3.86.5. The soybean market brushed off the stunning large yield released by the Pro Farmer Crop Tour and instead concentrated on the rising industrial demand for vegetable oils that's worldwide. For example, Indonesia is scheduled to increase their biodiesel mandate from 35% to 40% in January of 2025. Now, it's going to be interesting to watch this unfold in the coming years as the trade reacts to the imbalance of nature between soybean demand. Essentially, there's just too much demand for vegetable oils and not enough for the soybean meal that's being produced along with the oil. Well, yesterday we had November beans 7 3/4 cents higher at $9.80 3/4 per bushel. EU wheat led most of the complex lower. We had Minneapolis December wheat 4 1/4 cents lower at $5.68. Kansas City was 2 1/4 cents higher at $5.37 1/4, and Chicago was down 3 cents at $5.25. Cotton futures spent the day in a really tight trading range. At the closing bell, December futures were 65 points lower at $70.26. Livestock futures were mixed. We had October live cattle $1.27.5 higher, $176.97.5 per hundredweight. October feeder cattle were $3.10 stronger at $237.47.5 per hundred, and October lean hog futures dropped by 15 cents, closing out today at $80.40 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures caught fire once again. Now we have more milk moving to satisfy needs of the school system. That's tightening up the available milk supply for manufacturing. Spot milk prices are as much as $2 above the futures, with plants having to look for available supplies. Well, the futures market yesterday had September futures 75 points higher as they closed at $22.54. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. The call to surrender to Jesus is one step in our growth in holiness. And it doesn't just mean you give over a few things. It means He gets it all, including our finances, our investments. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partner today. Learn more by going to financialissues.org/join. That's financialissues.org/join.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Well, here at Financial Issues, we defund darkness, doing biblically responsible investing. Speaking of, we have heard that Lowe's has now been another company to change their minds about DEI and the woke strategy that they were following.
Yes.
A bit more about that on the conference call that's coming up this week. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing it right now, but make sure that you, if you're a partner, plan on tuning in, or if you can't tune in live, make sure that you make plans to listen to the replay over the next few days or over the weekend. We also...
Shana, that's Thursday, right? This coming Thursday?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
Yep. At noon Central Time, I believe.
Perfect.
You'll get an email, and it'll be posted on the website under the partners, the resources and partner conference call tab.
Yep.
I don't know if I got all that right, but it should be fairly easy to find. Well, right before the break, we were talking about funding the light. We were talking about what happened at the DNC, how they had Planned Parenthood had a mobile clinic right there, pretty much on site. They performed 8 chemical abortions, which is where the battlefront has gone to. You know, abortion clinics are not doing the most abortions. It's now done chemically. And we've got a picture to put up there about what also happened at the DNC. So not only was that Planned Parenthood bus there doing those abortions, but protesters defaced a crisis pregnancy clinic, so one that doesn't offer child sacrifices to demon gods. Yeah. They had red paint thrown all over it. They had fake clinic is what it says there on the front, and dead babies are in Gaza, indicating that, you know, I don't know that in abortion clinics there aren't dead babies. Right. I don't know what that's all about.
All this tells us is the same people who are murdering babies are also the ones who want Jews murdered too. So yeah, that's basically what that says.
Yep. So it's not, they're non-discriminatory. They not only want to murder babies in the womb, but even some people outside of the womb. Yeah. Yep. To my knowledge, so far, and you can correct me if you know something different, Seth, but no arrests have been made in this case.
So far, none. Yep.
And I don't think any arrests have been made on the other 92 attacks that have happened on pro-life groups and pregnancy centers since Roe v. Wade was overturned. Well, the FACE Act that was signed by the Clinton administration was a law that was supposed to protect churches and clinics, pro-life churches and clinics, from attacks. And now, under the Biden-Harris administration, it has been turned against those whom it was meant to protect, as it has jailed grandmothers and other godly people who peacefully stood in opposition of darkness at abortion clinics, just praying, singing hymns, extending the light and hope of Jesus Christ. And they were accused of preventing access to abortion clinics through coercion and intimidation, I think was the other one. So, folks, this is why funding the light is so important. It's going to cost that clinic a good amount of money to clean up the red paint, uncement their doors, and clean up all that graffiti there. So we encourage you to, an organization that does this well is Preborn, and they have been around for a long time. They put free ultrasound machines, or not free, but ultrasound machines paid for by people who donate to the ministry. They put those ultrasound machines in clinics across the United States, and not only are babies' physical lives saved, but so many of their parents' eternal lives are saved as the gospel is preached to every person that walks through that door. They are told about the love and hope of Jesus Christ. So, as our founder, Dan Celia, used to say, one day there will be a reunion in glory of all of the babies that were saved by the money that we deployed into the kingdom to support these preborn clinics. So we hope that you'll learn more about preborn by going to our website, financialissues.org. All right, we have just enough time to get to a call today. Let's go to Kathy. Kathy's calling from Ohio. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Shana. Thanks for taking my call. We've been with you about 5 to 6 years and just have so appreciated your ministry and have done well with it. I have a question about, I think it's called stop loss or something like that, is an exit strategy. Like, should we have, for all of our accounts or all of our stocks, a certain level at which if it goes below that it would automatically sell just in case there was a catastrophe?
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of that strategy. As you know, we recommend that people buy to hold for the long term. We have recently issued a good bit of sell alerts that should have your cash up to a level of somewhere between 15 and 25%. I think that's probably sufficient, because here's the questions that you have to ask yourself if you're going to do something like that. Once you put in those stop losses, unless you can cancel them before they actually execute, you're going to have another problem on your hands. Number one, where are you going to go? So if this crisis, I'm not sure exactly what you're expecting. It could be a number of things. The stage is set, and we are ripe for many financial catastrophes to happen. But where are you going to go? Are you going to sit in cash? Well, if so, the Fed's going to start cutting rates pretty soon, and instead of getting 4.5% or 5%, it's probably going to be 3% before we know it. And inflation is still right around 3%. So, you're going to have that issue. Then if those stop losses do fill, you've got another question to address, or a couple of questions to address. Number one, is it in a taxable account? Are you going to incur any capital gains? So if you if you get out and you have capital gains, you may not have a loss in value, but, are you going to have to pay some capital gains taxes, which is going to reduce the amount of principal that you have going back in? Whereas if you just would have ridden it out and it would have recovered, you would still have all of that money intact. The other thing is, what's your strategy? I don't think that you should get out until you have a good strategy of how and when to get back in. So the crashes that we have seen recently, and I'm talking about the correction that we saw just last month, the COVID recession. COVID recession lasted 6 months. There's $6.9 trillion sitting on the sidelines in cash right now. What we've seen recently is when the market does take any bit of a correction, we get a quick V bottom because we have so much money that's waiting to come in and grab up those prices. So, what if you get out? What if you get back in higher and you pay taxes? Then you've, it's really all counterproductive. So,
okay.
We don't have any formal exit strategy at this point, but at the end of the day, you're your own portfolio manager, and you really have to, listen to your own intuition.
Okay, that's real helpful. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thanks for calling,
Thanks,
Kathy.
Kathy.
I'm sure you asked the question that many were not brave enough to ask.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. God bless you. Hey, Shana, it was interesting Kathy brought that up. I can remember some old clips of Dan talking about how, when we're investing, we have to take into consideration our comfort level as well. And I can remember him saying to people, if you're not comfortable, just get out. I can even thinking about that too. And I'm not sure Kathy was in that spot, but It is interesting to think we have to consider what we're willing personally to be able to risk as well, because there is a risk with it. Absolutely.
There is. One of the best things that I think that you can do is go into it expecting a downturn at some point in time, because if you're expecting it, if you know that it's going to happen, if history repeats itself, we do get these corrections, 10% every other year, 20% or more every 3 to 5 years. So if you go in with the idea that that the business cycle is a cycle, it's cyclical, that means it has its ups and its downs, and you're expecting that, then it won't be a shock when it happens. And I think our partners are some of the most well-trained, disciplined investors that are out there, because instead of getting calls in panic about should we get out when the market starts to go down, our partners are calling saying, can I put more money in?
Which is great. Yeah.
Right. And historically, now, past performance is no guarantee of future results, and we're not always, at some point, I think history will not repeat itself and it will be different. But, I think that's going to be a day when we're going to have a lot more to worry about than our money. So, if history repeats itself, then, investors have always been served well to stay the course and even deploy dry powder when those times do come.
Yeah, well said.
Well, folks, we're a little bit late posting commentary for partners this week. We will get it out today, so if you haven't checked already, we did get some new buys added. You can check that out on the website, but commentary is coming shortly. Well, we got to go. Lord willing, we will be back tomorrow to remind you that time's getting short. The Master's coming back, and we want to help you be found good and faithful stewards of all that God has trusted you to manage. Find out more about our ministry at financialissues.org and come back tomorrow for more financial issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.